Aloha and welcome to Inside Hawaii Real Estate. I'm Will Tanaka with my co-host, business partner, and wife, Leonie Lam.
Thanks, Will. Together as full-time realtors, we're bringing you the latest in Hawaii real estate. Today's episode is focused on what is really going on inside Hawaii's real estate market with up-to-the-minute insight on the hottest topic shaping Oahu's real estate market. Are you looking for insights to make sense of where things are headed in our market? Well, this is a show for you.
So we're going to talk about the state of the market. Are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market? We'll also get into what's trending at the open houses, how interest rates are affecting leverage, and some of the biggest red flags buyers are spotting today. So let's get started. Okay, so Leonie, what's the current state of Hawaii's real estate market? Is it a seller's market or a buyer's market?
Well, I think that's a great question. We've been seeing a shift towards a more balanced market overall. For single family homes specifically, it's a pretty well balanced market, and it's still going to really depend on the neighborhood and the property condition. For condos, it's a buyer's market. It's shifted. There's not enough condo buyers for Oahu condos right now. For single family homes this year so far, sales were pretty flat as compared to last year. But when you look at 2 years ago, we're actually up in sales about 12.4%. So that's from 2 years ago for single family. Also, for single family homes on Oahu, we did hit a new record high for median sales price. So we're now at 1,185,000 for the median sales price. And that's up more than 10% over last year. But there's some reasons for that. So some of the reasons are there were fewer lower priced homes on the market. So more buyers purchased between 1.1 and 1.4 million. Homes under $900,000 made up only 22% of the sales in February, and that's, down from 30% just a year ago.
So when you're talking about $1.1 million single family homes, $500,000, for condos, that's just a general indicator because it really depends on the neighborhood, the condition of the property. Let's say you're looking at, Lanikai, right? I mean, one of the best beaches in the world. I mean, it's not going to be 1.1 million. It's going to be $3 to $5 million. Maybe in Haula or certain parts of Kalihi, $800,000, $900,000. Palolo, it could be a little bit under $1 million. And Kahala, $2 million. Yeah, needs definitely some work. And if you want completely upgraded, easily, $4 to $5 million. So that's just perspective. It's just a general indicator of the state of the Hawaii market when you're talking about 1.1, for a median sales price.
That's right. And another thing is that we're seeing more homes selling closer to the list price, but it really depends on how the home was initially priced and what neighborhood it's in, to your point. So, on average, sellers are getting about 98% of what they originally list for. In past years, they were getting over. So it was more like 102% of the list price. And so that was back in say May 2022 when the last record was set for that.
Okay, so you're saying like on average, let's say the list price is $1 million. I like simple math. So on average, they're getting about 980,000 for $1 million property.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
And for single family, there's still relatively low inventory, and then there's still buyer demand because we're seeing a lot of buyers that are still active in the market. And so it's keeping somewhat competitive for single family homes, especially for homes that are well priced and where buyers are perceiving they're getting great value. And right now, there's about 21.5% more single family homes on the market versus last year. So a little more selection than before. So buyers are actually able to take that opportunity to become a little bit more selective because there's a little more choice.
We always get inquiries about where are the deals? Can you still purchase a property for $1 million? So on Oahu, yes, there are. But Leonie, let's kind of dig a little bit deeper on where are the properties under $1 million?
Basically, for single family, if you look at the market, right now, today, active, there's 815 single family homes listed for sale. And so we'll kind of break it down by region, right? So if you look at West Oahu, for example, that's where the most single family home inventory is available. You're talking about 43%, about 350 homes for sale in West Oahu.
So you're talking about when you're talking about West Oahu, you're talking about Pearl City, Aiea, Waipahu, Eva Beach, Kapolei, Makakilo, Waianae, all the way to Makaha, right? That's West Oahu.
Essentially, I'm talking when I say West Oahu, I'm thinking Pearl City and west of that. Exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
Pearl City all the way out to like Makaha, right? So out on the west side, having the largest amount of homes for sale, there's 97 homes, or about 27.6 of that 43% of inventory that are listed for under $1 million. So 97 homes under $1 million on the west side. And there's also new construction available. They're developing out there neighborhoods. Things are still active. So anyway, there's a lot of opportunity for under $1 million out on the west side of Oahu. And then if you move into our neighborhood, East Oahu, and that's going to be like Diamond Head to Hawaii Kai, right? You're looking at 15.5% of all active inventory centered in that region. And there's only 6 homes for under $1 million in East Oahu.
So 6 homes under $1 million. So of all the places, Kaimuki, Kahala, Wailenui, Aina Haina, New Valley, Kokohai, Kalama Valley, just generally Hawaii Kai, only 6 homes under $1 million. I'm kind of curious to see what kind of condition they are.
Yeah, usually if you get a home for under $1 million in this East Oahu neighborhood, it's going to need work, most likely condition wise. And then kind of shifting over to Windward Oahu. So you're talking about like Kailua, Kaneohe neighborhoods. So about 12.5% of all inventory on Oahu for single family is out on Windward Oahu. And there's only 5 homes listed for sale under $1 million in Windward Oahu right now. And then in town, so everybody, not everybody, but a lot of buyers want to be in town because it's closer to Honolulu and to maybe work and things like that, schools. Right now, there's 14% of all active inventory is centered in Metro or in, Honolulu. And you're looking at 24 homes right now are listed under $1 million.
Okay, so you're thinking about Kapahulu, Moiliili, Makiki, Manoa, Nuuanu, Punch Bowl, Kalihi, Liliha, 24 homes under $1 million in town. Not bad. There could be potential deals, right?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at under a million for Metro, you're probably looking at neighborhoods like Kalihi, like Liliha, Punch Bowl. Those kind of neighborhoods are probably going to be where you're going to find deals for under $1 million. And
Okay.
then kind of shifting over to Central. So Central encompasses like Mililani, Wahiwa. And so right now there's 67 active listings in Central Oahu and 29 homes. So 29 out of those 67 are listed for under $1 million. For the North Shore, that's kind of the smallest segment that we have for active listings. There's 56 active listings on the North Shore of Oahu, and there's only 6 homes that are listed for under $1 million.
Wow, so there's actually homes under $1 million in North Shore. So, I mean, I'm not sure about Pupukea or Haleiwa or Wailua, but there's also Laie, Kahuku. So you never know where these, deals might come from. And so there's 850 single family homes. There's 167 homes under $1 million. So that's about one in every 5.
That's right. Yeah. So if you were a buyer looking for a home for about $1 million, how much would your monthly housing payment be?
So if you're kind of calculating the principal and interest of a mortgage, taxes, increase in insurance, if you're putting 20% down, probably anywhere between 5,500 to 5,700. And of course, you could always buy down the rate or shop around. So it will kind of depend on what the actual interest rate is. Because right now, nationally, it's about 6.75. But I think more recently, we have a buyer who just got it at 6%. So it would definitely bring the monthly payments down. And when you think about like condos, I think that's, as you mentioned, it's definitely a buyer's market. I mean, for the most part, like every single condo building, it's going to be a buyer's market. and prices have actually dropped about 3.6% from last year. So the new median used to be, over 500,000. Now it's 494 again. And the highest amount of closed sales for condos this year were for units under $600,000.
Okay, so while houses are kind of getting more expensive and less affordable, condo prices are softening. And just looking at the prices, they're becoming slightly more affordable. And so that's making them a little more appealing to price conscious buyers or buyers with limited budgets, except for the added cost of the monthly maintenance fees, right? Which we're going to be discussing a little further.
When you're talking about the remaining inventory, so currently it's about 5.8 months. It's trending towards 6 months of inventory. So what does that really mean? So that means that if there was no new active listings for condos, it would take about 6 months to sell all the listings on the market. So this is definitely, a pretty good indicator that it is a buyer's market. Maybe when it's about 4 months or so, maybe 5 months tops, it's still a balanced market. But when it's nearing 6 months of inventory, it's a buyer's market, especially in Hawaii. So, for example, like we just closed on a transaction. We represent the buyers, and it was a building right across the street from Punahou schools. And the kids go to University of Hawaii UH Manoa, so very very easy commute. So a couple of years ago, those units, a 2 bedroom, 1 bath with 1 parking, sold for above 400,000, between low 400s to 475. For this unit, we closed at 350,000. And the HOA fees was only 600. So it was a great deal for the buyers, in that particular situation. And in terms of from a buyer standpoint, I mean, they are very, very keen. They're informed. They're selective. I mean, all the antennas are up. So they're very, very savvy. I thought they were pretty savvy a couple of years ago, even more so now.
Buyers in this market are not only savvy, but they're also very, very cautious before making an offer. They're very cautious. They do a lot of due diligence, and in a lot of cases, they do their own research. So they're very well informed.
Yeah. So right now, so for example, when I talk about their antennas are up, they're very savvy. What I mean by that is, for example, HOA fees, right? They don't just ask, oh, what's the HOA fees or what's included? They ask, what was the HOA fees 2 years ago, last year? What percentage has it risen? Um, you know, has there been any special assessments? I mean, they have a lot of them, they just have a checklist, right? So on the buy side, and also on the list side, I mean, we just have to be prepared more than before because they ask excellent questions. And even, for single family homes, there with the new flood map that came out and that's gonna be initiated in 2026, they're asking what are the flood zones? It could be flood zone D right now, but is that going to be changing? And especially when you're looking at older construction homes, meaning from the 50s, 60s, 70s, when what's the age of the roof? Is it single wall? Is it double wall? How's the electrical system? Has the plumbing been upgraded over the years? So in terms of the questions, we have to be prepared and on top of it more so than ever before. And we're seeing a lot of the buyers kind of take a pause when the homes have like red flags they didn't expect because online you look at the photos and you're like, wow, this looks great. And sometimes it could be virtual staging, it could be enhanced photos, but when you actually walk through it in person, something looks, kind of like the photos. Sometimes it's like, whoa, I didn't expect this.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about red flags, what you're meaning is things like unpermitted work, which is prevalent. I mean, it's so common to see that, right? Work done or renovations or upgrades done without permits. So that's something that could be a red flag. Funky floor plans, sometimes the way just the layout of the home is just different or it's not as functional as a buyer would like, or sometimes there's outdated interior or exterior, or any signs of deferred maintenance tend to be huge red flags for buyers in this market.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think you have to combine that with the concerns from the lenders and the insurance companies. For example, in single family homes. There's a national company that will not insure single wall construction homes in Hawaii. So they will not. So I mean, there's some other national ones that are still insuring single wall construction, but now they're asking more questions like roof. How old is the roof? And if the seller cannot really answer how old the roof is, then the lender or the insurance company will require them to do an inspection. And it doesn't happen very often, but once in a rare while, and it's happening a little bit more, when I talk to our lender colleagues, that sometimes they'll ask for the inspection report. Yikes. You never you never want to give an inspection report. I mean, that's just like a whole list of red flags, right? So I think there's definitely some things that the sellers could do when they're prepping their home. Just be well informed, really understanding, okay, well, what is the age of the roof? When was it last repaired? Were there any leaks before? So I think in terms of just be on top of your game and be more diligent from both sides.
Yeah, I agree. Today's buyers have more questions than before. They're demanding a lot more transparency and they're seeking something that's move-in ready for the most part. Sometimes I think because of the changing environment economically that we're in, the idea of doing work after closing or doing renovations or significant costs for materials and labor, increasing. And so they're kind of factoring that in. And so it's not as appealing when it's not, ready or when there's like a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to happen.
Yeah.
So unless it's priced well and the price justifies that type of work.
Flood zones. Last year in 2024, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, they released a new flood risk map for the island of Oahu. So they've been working on this for the last 5 years. There's a lot of places in East Oahu where it's flood zone D. So X is the lowest chance of flooding, so you don't usually require flood insurance. D is undetermined, but I think for the most part they don't require it. But what's been happening is with the new insurance map, I'm sorry, the flood map, D has been converted sometimes to AE in a certain part of Aina Haina, of all places, right? Some places have remained the same. Some places have changed from D, as in dog, to X, which is great. So make sure you could just Google the new preliminary flood zone map. It's going to affect in 2026. So we'll see what happens. But I think as a homeowner, you definitely need to know what the flood insurance or the flood zone is for your home, especially if you're close to water, you have those storm drain canals, heavy rainfalls. The FEMA has kind of looked at all aspects of it. So do your homework this year.
How about for VA loans? Like, so VA buyers that are getting VA loans, what are we seeing sort of with that market?
So it's kind of interesting. So if you kind of look back, 5 or 6 years ago, and in terms of if you get a VA buyer and you're the homeowner selling the property, you're like, ooh, VA appraisal, they're gonna be tough. They're gonna, either they could cancel when the VA appraiser inspects the property, or they could ask for a reduction in price. So oftentimes, and this was the 5 to 6 years ago, they were very stringent. But I want to say from our experience on both the buy side and the sell side, um, they become a lot more reasonable,
Yeah.
a lot more fair. So they're always looking for lead-based paint issues, meaning like chip paint, right? That's always a red flag. That's easily remedied, basically, whether it's escrow or hopefully when you prep the home. Um, I've seen appraisers just turn on the faucet. Sometimes if it leaks, it just needs to be repaired. So, but for the most part, I think VA loans, VA buyers has been pretty smooth.
Yeah, primarily the VA inspectors are looking or appraisers are looking for health and safety primarily issues, and it's been reasonable.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems like in terms of the buyer profile, Um, do you think it kind of depends where they're like local buyers, they're out of state, foreign? What's your perspective?
Buyer profiles, specifically, I guess if they're local buyers, they tend to be focused more on practical matters, especially commute times. So a lot of local buyers are looking for specific school districts or areas that are, easy for their morning commutes and traffic. I think is a big issue. So a lot of those types of local buyers are looking for that. But also local buyers are looking largely for multi-generational potential. They're looking to help maybe caregive for a family member. And so they're looking for things that homes that have wet bars or that sort of potential in a lot of cases that we're seeing, I think. For out of state buyers, they're a lot more about lifestyle, looking for more aesthetics, looking for views in a lot of cases. Not that local buyers are not looking for that too, but they're looking for a lot more of those types of properties, I think, or those things. And then international buyers, they're looking at more long-term values and they're looking at rental income potential, and then they're also looking at legal short-term rental zoning, I think.
Okay, I think that's a good perspective. And I think, when we talk about local buyers, that doesn't necessarily mean that they grew up here. They're just, they're a resident of Hawaii at the time they close on the property, pretty much. So the local buyers in under that definition, they still account for the overwhelming majority of all Hawaii properties, not just on Oahu, but just across the state. So of course, Hawaii, and then California, Washington State, then followed by like Texas, New York, even Vegas, Nevada, and then foreign buyers. So even though the yen, the Japanese yen, is still very weak, they still buy the overwhelming majority of all Oahu properties, followed by Canada, Korea, China, even Australia these days, right? And then you'll get here and there from other Asian countries and also Europe. And you know how you kind of talked about multifamily homes, and I think in terms of the nursing care costs, I mean, it is expensive. And oftentimes, if they don't have long-term care insurance, they're paying anywhere from 7,000 to 15,000 a month. So this is where, your aging parents, they might go into a nursing care home. And this could be in a residential neighborhood. So for the most part, it's on Oahu, it's zoned as long as you get your license, a CNA license, that you could open up a nursing care facility. So I would say that's one of the growing businesses on Oahu. And I think, according to a nursing care facilities report, they're generating income of like $500 million in Hawaii. So I think, okay, can a lot of people afford 8,000 a month, 15,000 a month, outside of insurance? No, I don't think so. So I think that's why the multi-generational homes or potential where, yeah, they're gonna spend some money to maybe make it a little bit more accessible to someone who might not be able to use the stairs, but in terms of affordability, adding an ADU Ohana dwelling, or just making it, just a lot more friendly for the aging parents. Because of course, your parents, my in-laws, they live downstairs, and good thing that we're just upstairs, for the most part when we can be there.
I think that aging in place is becoming more and more prevalent, and
Yeah.
people are wanting that, and then others, are more willing to get like a unit at one kalakaua or something. But a lot of times they prefer to age in place in the home.
So we've been talking a lot about the buyers, right? And I mean, it's good for the current sellers of homes or if they're looking to sell in the future. But what should the sellers be doing right now if they're thinking about selling their home in the next year or so?
Okay, well, I think given the perspective that we shared about what we're seeing or our insights on what the current market's buyers are looking like, and how much more savvy they are and intuitive and doing a lot of research, I think that if you're going to sell your home, it would be advisable to get a pre-inspection report by a professional home inspector, because even if you're 3 to 6 months out from listing, if you do get that pre-inspection report, then it does give you the opportunity to note all the deficiencies, on the property and at least remedy the safety issues. Because, you know, for now, I say that if you're able to at least remedy the health and safety issues, those issues will not pop up once you open escrow and the buyer does their own inspection. It will be part of your disclosure. You'll have to let them know that we repaired these items. But in a lot of cases, buyers would appreciate that, I think, in this market where they would say, at least they know that these things were remedied, and it just shows, additional care and concern for the property. And so it's good to have an expert, like your realtor or a contractor or something, kind of review the items before you delve into spending the funds to and the resources to make the repairs, just to make sure that it makes sense. But I think definitely if it's health and safety, that's kind of a no-brainer. Of course, the cleaning and decluttering is essential because the house has to be sold empty anyway. So the more that it can be cleaned out and completely decluttered, would and of course, I think in this market too, staging is critical. I think staging is going to be a huge part of the emotional um, draw for any type of buyer that kind of comes in at this point.
That's a great point. Of course, resolving any unpermitted work, that would be kind of key. Because I think, for single family homes, I mean, people will ask about permits. Is this permitted? Is this addition permitted? Yeah, it was permitted, 30 years ago. So I think that's pretty important too. So I think the good news is that homes are, that are well prepped, well priced, are still selling. And a thoughtful preparation really gives you an edge because there's all these psychological factors these days, right? People are getting emotional and like little things that could, set people off, right? Because like more recently, we were showing one of our buyers. She was just looking at condos, and after looking at many different buildings, she zoned in on one. But when we went back the second time, went to the bathroom in the sink, there was a backup. So it seems like it wasn't just within her unit, but there was a sewer lateral backup, from the building. So that just gave a red flag to all of us. And we're like, wait a minute, what's going on in this building? And it just, raised some red flags. So I think, you know, in terms of if they do have the time, it's not like, okay, let's go see the property, let's put an offer. It's like, okay, let's go see these properties. We'll kind of narrow down to a few and let's go see those properties again. So at least we know upfront, like, okay, do they really love it or, do they not? And that way it's like, well, we have to do more showings, more due diligence. But I think when we get into escrow, they'll feel a lot more comfortable.
What about, stigmatized properties in Hawaii?
So you're talking about death in homes.
Mhm.
So I would say that that's one of the more common questions that we get. Did someone pass away in the home? So from a legal standpoint, legally, you don't have to disclose that from a legal standpoint. But from a custom practice, culture, and maybe from even an ethical standpoint, if people ask, you got to be truthful, right? So I think that's one of the things that we always ask our sellers, when we represent homeowners in a sale, and we just ask them, this is going to be part of the disclosure. Legally, you don't have to disclose, but just from a cultural standpoint in Hawaii, we do disclose. And I think more and more, because people are aging in place, that's going to be more common. And I think some people are still going to be concerned about that. Right, when it comes to death in homes, when it's like murders and suicide, same thing. I mean, I think that should always be part of a disclosure. And from a Honolulu Board of Realtors standpoint, those are so-called notorious, and it's more of a business slash custom and practice that those should be disclosed. So I think when you talk about stigmatized properties. I think our take is, yeah, you should just go ahead and disclose it because either way, someone's going to find out. The new buyers will find out from the neighbors, right? Eventually, somehow. So anytime they ask a question, we just try to give them as straightforward of an answer as possible.
What are some positive things that you think might help a seller to increase the amount of interest and then therefore offers that they receive on their property?
Well, so I think in terms of especially when it comes to single family homes, some people want to know the story behind it, right? So you want to know that you know your sellers really well because you want to know that, you want to meet the neighbors too. If at all possible, kind of walk down the street and just get a general sense because sometimes you learn more from the neighbors about the neighborhood, right? And just making the repairs as much as possible. So jealousy window cranks, I mean, those are pretty easy to fix. And people are okay with buying like older homes, but when they see so many things wrong with the property, then they start questioning, wait, what else is wrong with the property? So the simple things like if an AC is broken, let's fix it, right? So I think, just instead of just getting on the market as soon as possible, just prep as much as possible, do the repairs, staging, professional photography, first impressions, everything to get people in. Any last words for our viewers, Leonie?
Well, I think that the market conditions are changing. And so it's time to adapt. And that's what we're doing. And it's, understanding how the interest rates impact the buying power, or it could be like how the roof age is going to impact insurability. And I think for sellers, it matters more than ever to kind of be attuned to the property and what repairs might be needed in advance of listing or for in the preparation stage. I think that's pretty important. And then I think for buyers, they're just continue to be educated. And I think sellers should know that buyers are very cautious right now in this market. And so just be proactive and just be as transparent as possible. And I think that that will lead to a much smoother sale or transactional experience for both parties.
All right, so that's the inside scoops on Hawaii's real estate market. We'll see you guys again in a few weeks. Thank you so much, and mahalo for watching.
Aloha.